analysis, and we today in lecture 9 we are going to talk about something related to the context and the situation, and how to a great extent the meanings of something is derived, taken from the context where that word is used, and other clues that are related to the context. So G in this chapter integrates the tools of inquiry, the tools that we have already discussed in the earlier chapters, into an overall model of discourse analysis that stresses the 6 building tasks. We have already introduced these building tasks at the opening of chapter 2. I will also, according to this, I refers to G, of course, will also discuss from the perspective on discourse analysis taken in this book, the role of transcripts in discourse analysis, what might constitute an ideal discourse analysis, and the nature of validity of discourse analysis. In other words, he tries to reach the ideal discourse analysis. What could be considered ideal? Why it is considered ideal discourse? Because some conditions are fulfilled, some conditions are achieved. So the most important point so far is the definition of a situated meaning, and I would like also to confirm the necessity of understanding and reading the definitions of all the definitions I have already covered, because to a great extent the exam will have some of these definitions. So you have to understand the definitions. You have to refer to the definitions of any new word or of any word you might face in our course. Situated meaning, notice that the two words are related. Situated is derived from the situation, and the meaning that is taken depending on the situation. A situated meaning is an image or pattern that we assemble. So it's an image or pattern that we assemble on the spot as we communicate in a given context. If we say an airport, an image will come to your mind. Planes, controlling tower, seeing pilots, seeing passengers, for example. So a situated meaning is a meaning that is taken from the situation as a whole, from the context. Is an image or pattern that we assemble on the spot as we communicate in a given context, based on our construal of that context and on our past experiences. Indeed, our past experiences tell us a lot about what might come to our mind if some words are mentioned. It is our experience, our past experience in visiting an airport, for example, that makes words such as passengers, pilots, planes trigger in our minds once the word airport is mentioned. In chapter 3, I refers to G as well. G used the example of the following two utterances. The coffee spelled get a mop. Notice that the word mop, being used in that context, it triggers in our mind that what we mean by coffee is the liquid of the coffee, because the mop will be used to clean it. This is the context, this is the situation. The coffee spelled get a broom. Here the image of the coffee will be changed. Then we will talk about the grains, not something liquid, because we have used the word broom. In other words, this word being used in that situation triggered in our mind, depending on our past experience, that this is what we mean, but not that what we mean. In other words, we know that the mop is used to clean, let me say, something liquid, while broom is used for something else. In the second case, triggered by the word broom and your experience of such matters, you assemble either a situated meaning, a meaning that depends on the situation. It might as well change that meaning because of the changing of the situation. Your experience of such matters, you assemble is an important word, either a situated meaning, something like grains that we make our coffee from, or like beans from which we grind coffee. Of course, in a real context, there are many more signals as how to go about assembling situated meanings for words and phrases. In other words, the meaning that comes to our mind, depending on the words we used, and depending on the context that where that word is used. Situated meanings, the definition is very much important, and the examples of the coffee I have just covered are also very much important. Situated meanings do not simply reside in individual minds. They do not simply exist in our minds, in people's minds. Very often, they are negotiated between people in and through communicative social context or interaction. For example, in chapter 2, G used the example of someone in a relationship saying, I think good relations shouldn't take work. A good part of the conversation following such a remark might very well involve mutually negotiating what work is going to mean for the people concerned in this specific context. In other words, somebody might say a sentence like the one I have just mentioned. I think good relations shouldn't take work. The word work doesn't have only one meaning or a fixed meaning. If somebody says that sentence, he might encounter somebody who would negotiate what he exactly means by work. So the word work doesn't have a fixed meaning. It depends on the context. It might mean something here, but if you are talking to a carpenter, it might mean something else. Work that is related to wood, that is related to the nature of the work of carpenters, for example. As well as in the larger context of their ongoing relationship. Furthermore, as conversations and indeed relationships develop, participants continually revise their situated meanings. So, revise means the meaning might change. What I mean by that? No, I mean that, but not that. So, the context to a great extent, it plays a major role in changing the meaning of the same word. Words like work and coffee seem to have more general meanings than are apparent in the source of situated meanings we have discussed so far. The word work doesn't have only one meaning, as I have said. Indeed, it has a general meaning. Words like work and coffee seem to have more general meanings, not only one meaning. Even the word coffee, we have noticed that in two different situations, it has two different meanings. Once, the liquid I drink, which is the coffee. In another situation, because of the word brown, I mean the grains from which I take the coffee. This is because words are also associated with what? In chapters 3 and 4, G called cultural models. So, words are associated to a great extent with what we call cultural models. Cultural models, this is important. The definition, as I told you, the definitions are very much important in the exam. Cultural models are storylines. We're talking about lines, stories that are inherited, taken from generations into another generations. Cultural models are storylines of connected images, like a mental movie, or informal theories found between people they agree upon, but they are informal theories shared by people belonging to specific social or cultural groups. By the way, as if we are talking about some meanings that are only found in a given situation, in a given society, because the people living in that society have a shared knowledge. This is sometimes called speech community. In other words, as I do live in this society for a long period of time, and another person is living in the same society for a long period of time, we started having a shared knowledge that helps us understand something in a different way, or that differ from the meaning that might be found in another society. So this is something inherited, something taken from the experience, something taken from our past experience or from the culture we live in. Cultural models are storylines, families of connected images, or informal theories shared by people belonging to specific social or cultural groups. In other words, because we belong to the same cultural groups, because we do belong to the same social groups, we have our own experience that might differ from the experience of other people, and that experience sometimes plays a major role in interpreting some meanings of some words. For example, you might be given the meaning of a word which means something in this village and might mean something else in another village, because the people living in here have their own experience, their own heritage, their own culture that help them one way to know that that word means that thing, something which might differ if it is in another society. That's all for today with regard to our lecture. Thank you so much.